And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
And those who have come so far on their journey to equality have a responsibility to reach back and help others join them. Because for all our differences, we are one people.
You are listening to Context, where the past meets the present.
There's been a hot topic that, it's definitely trendy to say this, even though it's pretty inaccurate, are the comparisons of Donald Trump to Adolf Hitler. Godwin's Law just consistently manifesting itself everywhere you go, even off the internet.
Trump is popular, Hitler was popular, therefore Hitler Trump. But it's like you could do this with the Beatles. The Beatles were popular. Hitler was popular. The Beatles are Hitler. Beatles, there's pictures of them with the British flag. The Beatles were nationalistic. Therefore the Beatles are Hitler.
Yeah, this stuff, we shouldn't even be really bringing it up, and just something you'd see maybe in the tabloids or something.
There are issues to discuss here.
I agree, and I think because we teach history or know a lot about history, and I think it's our responsibility almost to address these things when we hear it all the time. And my thoughts are maybe we can even drag people who normally wouldn't be into history this way, because a lot of times Hitler's like a gateway. Students of mine who aren't normally into history, once they hear Hitler, all of a sudden their ears perk up, like, what?
I think part of the problem there is, I honestly don't think anybody is not into history. It's kind of impossible, because saying that you're not into history is like saying that I live exactly in the present. I have no idea what has happened for anything past the last 10 seconds. You can't do that. But as soon as you put on the label history, a lot of people get turned off because, it's just a bunch of names and dates, and I don't care about history. But you do. We don't need a gateway drug to get people into history. What we need is a good way of framing it that makes people get into it.
Making it relevant to their lives.
Mm-hmm. This, I suppose, makes it relevant, but not really. It's false relevancy. And this is exactly the reason why people say they hate history, because they get this kind of crap thrown at them. For me, it's exactly the opposite. It's not a good way of getting people into history. It's actually a way of getting people out of it.
Interesting. Yeah.
I know I'm sick of the election and politics and hearing about Trump, Cruz.
Hell, I kind of made a response video myself in terms of the whole ad Hitlerum, the reductio ad Hitlerum video. But I didn't want to deal with Trump stuff, so I simply left his name out of the video.
But here's the thing about Hitler. I think a lot of people, it's about what people fear what Trump may become.
No, it was in his book, though. Show me Donald Trump's book where he says he wants to eradicate everyone.
I don't have the art of the deal, but frickin' having read Mein Kampf, I can tell you nobody is going to get printed if they're at that scale if they're going to be talking like that.
Yeah.
The fact that Hitler mostly targeted internal targets, where Trump has he's perceived to attack external targets. So the whole, obviously Hitler called for the Jews to be getting rid of that lived within Germany. He thought that within Germany they needed to cleanse the country, whereas Trump is saying that we shouldn't let anybody in, that we should restrict immigration and kick out illegal immigrants. And
there is a significant difference between xenophobia and
racism.
Well, no, it's not necessarily not racism, but it is certainly a different kind. Plus, it's a lot easier politically to go after people externally than internally, because obviously they aren't part of the system. Yeah, if he was going after people internally, that we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
Right. And I know Richie brought this up, that there's a strong history in our country of nativism we brought this up on the podcast before, that doesn't make it right just because nativism has always been there.
He's basically arguing against human nature, is what he's doing.
Yeah, I mean, to fear foreigners is definitely a natural thing. I mean, that's...
I don't exactly believe in such a thing as human nature, but it's, as I said before, it is a lot easier to hate foreign things that are foreign than it is to hate things that are internal.
Yeah, I mean, just like how people naturally tend
Path
to...
of least resistance and all that.
Yeah, people hang out with others that look like them, that share their same values. They don't go out of their way. Yeah, tribalism.
I mean, that's why we have languages and races and ethnicities to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, there's that study, I don't know if you guys are familiar with, but the study, they had toddlers that they were studying, and the toddlers wore certain colors of clothing, and you had like your kids that wore only purple, or the kids that wore only green, and the kids gravitated towards the other kids that wore the same color as them. So it had nothing to do with skin color, it was clothing color, because it was like, oh, I can relate to this kid because he's wearing the same clothes as me. I mean, something as simple as that.
Yeah, there was a great Stanley Milgram experiment where he would tell his students as they were walking in, watch out for this kid. Just he would single out a particular student, even though the student was being paid to be sitting in this class, and wasn't actually, was just there to be part of this experiment. And what he would do is say something like, this kid is a racist, or something like that. Something that would automatically turn everyone against him. But he would say it off to the side. And actually, he wasn't the one saying it. It was some other person that he had planted to say it. But by doing that, he was able to crowd the entire class against this one kid. And the kid, the whole point was that they'd start a class discussion, and it was shown every time that anything he said, no matter how correct it was, instantly got the response of something that was negationist, that was oppositional, even if it was something blatantly correct.
Well, that sounds like the country as a whole today. I mean, I think somebody's been whispering in the ear of the entire country. It's like everything is racist, everything is sexist, everything is xenophobic.
Yeah, the pendulum has gone over.
Well, that's the whole problem with that. That's a much, much deeper problem on that. But, race, class, and gender, or simply identity politics, is alive and well in this country.
Certainly. Speaking of racism, Trump has been accused of being racist, but more implicitly, where Hitler is explicitly racist. Implicit racism definitely... I would even say a lot of my family is, I don't think it's not a serious problem. It really isn't, but it definitely is common. It's not. I mean, Trump. It's not like he's a radical because of this.
If I say the Baptist, am I irreligious or what? I mean, we say that's the Baptist. I hear our president say the Muslim community. Is that not divisive and separatist? And that's that group.
The whole thing in terms of trying to point to Trump's racism, you don't really need to go into that, because there you're trying to find explicit racism, and what Richey was referring to in terms of implicit racism is talking about what is implied by his stance on
immigration,
on eliminating all Muslims from immigration, and how he presents his whole wall building effort. These are what are implicitly racist. Now, that's a very, very different thing from explicit racism. Like, we had this conversation when we were talking about Wallace, and whether or not Trump was like Wallace, and it's like, no, not at all. This is a very different issue.
I mean, that was just kind of like a picture, like found a picture of someone with like a 8-8 tattoo, you know, sitting there with a Trump sticker on their laptop, and I mean, just ridiculous.
Hitler was moderate to get elected, and then after he was elected, he moved to the right, you know, or whatever you want to say, more radical. When you say to the right, it's always a little misleading when you talk about fascism. But then Trump, of course, is becoming radical just to get elected. He's saying radical things. Many people agree with this, that he's just trying to get attention and, you know, hey, look at me, and so I'm going to say whatever. That way the media covers me. And it's working, and that's just to get the nomination. And then once he gets the nomination, then he'll move back towards the center and be more moderate to reach.
I mean, he undoubtedly will, but I mean, the thing that blows my mind is, I mean, he's basically saying protect the country and enforce the law, and that's radical. Yeah, that's how far that pendulum has swung.
One thing that I think that, and before I go into what I'm going to say, I want to stress that, and you guys probably agree with this, whether people admit it or not, they tend to like fascism. They tend to like fascism. They like to have a strong leader. They like to be controlled. So that's just my belief on that. Now, that's part of the appeal of Trump. He's presenting himself as a strong man who's going to do whatever it takes. He's not going to compromise at all. And even though we know that he's compromised several times throughout his career, you know, the way that he talks about the people who protest at his rallies, he's like, you know, in the good old days, people didn't do this. They would just they'd send them out on a stretcher. They'd beat the crap out of these guys, basically, who try to stir things up at a protest. And that is something that is disturbing to me whenever you see someone that's calling
words.
for
oh my
trying
God,
to
he said words. He said words. He's so hateful. Oh, he's an entertainer. Getting attention.
The way that he's using those words, the way that he's getting that attention is what is disturbing.
Inciting violence is not okay. Well, let's just take it back to fascism, though. I mean, a lot of people, like, you know, we all know that he tweeted out
fascism. That's fascism.
He tweeted out a quote by Mussolini. He didn't know it was Mussolini at the time, and then after he found out it was, he's like, well, no big deal, you know. But Mussolini is... Benito Mussolini is definitely someone who is not looked at in positive light in world history. And he's looked at as someone who was abusive of his power, who constantly contradicted himself, constantly manipulated people. He censored everyone. He committed atrocities left and right. I mean, he wasn't Hitler, but he was certainly not someone we want to emulate. And when someone kind of shows some of the same characteristics running for public office as Mussolini, that I think the more accurate comparison would be to Mussolini. I mean, fascism, a lot of people, like I said earlier, they kind of gravitate towards fascist leaders, because most people don't know what fascism really means.
I think it makes them feel secure.
Oh yeah, definitely. They like the authoritarianism, whether they would never admit that. You know, they're like, well, no, I like liberty. I don't like to be told what to do. But at the same time, no, yeah, you do like to be told what to do. You want somebody strong to protect you, yeah. You haven't really had a candidate for president talk quite like Trump does about people protesting, like, and so I guess
wouldn't say that at all. You don't even have to look very far back. I mean, you just have to look at frickin' anytime you've had presidents talking about how they would, you know, punch some dude in the face because of X, that is along the same lines, and like nearly every president makes some sort of silly statement like that. Just as soon as they say, "I'd like to punch this guy in the face," that's instantly that same sort of rhetoric. The problem is Trump seems to be a repeat offender. He's worse in regards to the amount that he's spewing out, rather than
I think it's just because now there's cameras everywhere, and he's giving so many speeches so often. I mean, I don't even know how you could sit here and watch 3 of his speeches in a row, because I think it's a pattern. It's like, hey, it's like a script.
He also
It's like
he certainly doesn't have a script though.
Popular comeback.
The guy,
But it's like a mental script. These are the points I'm going to make. These are the types of things I'm going to say. This is what gets a response from the crowd.
He talks a lot out of his butt. I mean, let's be frank. So much. If you try to watch a full one of his speeches, you're just sitting there like, half the time going, trying to understand what the hell he's saying.
Protesters.
Because the guy talks like a freaking middle schooler.
Well, he's talking to the American public and the American mentality.
Yeah, people can relate to him. He's just like one of them, except for the whole billionaire thing, which everybody aspires to be. They think that they're going to be the next billionaire for some reason.
I mean, it's like the campaign
they don't have
slogan.
More than a high school education.
I will say his campaign slogan is more complex than Obama's. Change, hope, hope, change, change, hope, hope.
Well,
change.
let's look at that. Make America Great Again. I mean, this is something that Richey brought up.
It's just taken from Reagan.
Mussolini wanted to make Italy great again. Hitler wanted to make Germany great again after the
Beatles wanted to make great music.
Every leader wants to make their country great again. Come on, it's.
I would run on a platform. No, I'm going to make this country
make
horrible.
America hell again.
Yeah, I'm going to run for president and say, like, I'm going to make this freaking country perceivably worse. Yeah, that's
now, we
a
have
great
had
way
a
to
few
get
politicians say they were going to raise taxes. I mean, Bernie and, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, well, the argument there is that by raising taxes, you make things better, bringing in new programs. In Bernie's case, just bringing up as many programs as you possibly can. For Trump, the whole Make America Great Again thing is not just it's not comparable to fascism. It's just a campaign slogan that actually was used by Reagan.
Yeah, well, Richey said that it was a genius, and I'm like thinking, like, how is it genius when it literally every politician who's ran for office has said that in history. Like it's
also implying the country's worse than it's been in a long time. It was once great, so we have to make it great again.
I didn't have anything else in my notes other than I want to kind of reiterate the fact that comparisons of either Hitler or Mussolini to Trump, it's more about what people's fears are of what Trump may become, not who he is. And I think because there are so many unknowns with Trump, that because he is kind of all over the place with his rhetoric, and he's starting to become more consistent, but at the same time he's very vague, and so people are like, well, what is he going to do? Well, no, he's not really going to do that. He's just saying that to get elected. But that kind of leads to a lot of, you can go down lots of rabbit holes because of vague talk, and so you could take that to a dark place, or you can take it to a nice place,
Yeah. I think the thing that people keep on forgetting in all of this is, and what should be the main part of the conversation in terms of his rhetoric and how his effect on people and what he compares to and all that, is he's a reality TV star. He knows how to work an audience, he knows how to frickin' get people riled up, and he knows how to use that to his advantage. That is the entire point of reality TV.
I would say there's a legitimate Hitler comparison.
Because Hitler was a reality TV star.
Well, no, he knew how to get people riled up. He knew how to get...
But there's so many other political... that's another one of those ones where it's just like the Make America Great Again comparison. There's just so many other politicians who do that. Although, if you ever watch the Will to Power, if you ever watch that and watch how he builds up a speech, how he starts off in a nice, calm, dulcet tones and starts getting progressively more and more, and then he's all the way up here, just all over the place by the end, and just feverish in his rhetoric. That is something that Trump pales in comparison. The fact is, Hitler was actually a good speech maker. He could actually give a good speech. Trump, on the other hand, doesn't give a good speech. He just is able to rile people up. And that's something that's actually very different from Hitler.
He can entertain, it's not like inspiring.
He can entertain. He can't get people to truly understand him. Hitler was amazing in terms of his ability to espouse ideology. Trump, on the other hand, is not at all good at that. What he's good at is getting people riled up. Yeah, that's not really... If you listen to what Hitler was saying in most of this stuff, it's not about frickin' hate rhetoric. It's not about... It's not specifically hateful, because you can't get elected and just going around going, "Töten alles Juden, töten alles Juden." So, and then he didn't even need to worry about being re-elected, and he wasn't really elected to begin with. You can't go around saying that and remain in office anywhere. Doesn't matter.
What have the Jews been kicked out of 190 countries historically, and even in any of those 190, I don't think he could have ran around saying that.
Yeah. So, we just seem to assume that Hitler was going around espousing all this hate, and it's not really what holds up to actual history, because there's a reason why he was so popular, and it wasn't because he was espousing all this hate.
Yeah, it's because there were just desperate times. I mean, people were living in desperate times. It was a horrible, horrible time to live in a horrible place, and they had suffered so much because of World War I, and everybody hated the Treaty of Versailles, and everybody hated pretty much all the democratic countries who had defeated them.
And look at what Mussolini is doing down in Italy. We need to get ourselves together. That's a very different line of speaking than what Trump does, where Trump is basically, like I keep on having to make comparisons to middle schoolers, but like, I just remember being in middle school and talking to people and having those same kind of conversations where it's like, oh yeah, well, Timmy did this 2 days ago.
That would be a way more effective thing, I think. I mean, you should do a video. I think he would be pretty good at this. You should actually do a video about Donald Trump comparing him to a middle schooler. That should scare the voting populace more than comparing to Hitler, because everything gets compared to Hitler. That's ridiculous. I mean, if you could point out how childish his mannerisms and behaviors and stuff like that are, but it's not like it would be some startling revelation. But I think it would be funny, and it would be a breath of fresh air.
Well, I think what would be a more powerful comparison on that, well, not comparison, just analysis for that, is how he is using tropes from reality TV to get elected. That's what really needs to be analyzed, and I never see it in the news media.
Yeah, because that comparison I can see that would make me way more nervous about him than people comparing him to Hitler.
It's not even a comparison at that point, It's like he is a reality TV star. There's no doubt.
I'm just talking like the middle school mannerisms, the childish and it's Rubio and stuff like that. I mean, the unpresidentialness of it.
He did it first.
There was a study that came out. The Daily Show reported on this. Funny enough, no, it wasn't the Daily Show. I think it was one of the comedy ones. Reported on the fact that a study went and took something like 50% of all the speeches made by each of the candidates during the election cycle and put it through the
the Kincaid thing. I've got a program
Thomas
that
Kincaid.
does that.
Yeah, they fed all of them through Thomas Kincaid, and Trump was definitively lowest at a grade 4.5.
He knows a lot of words. We are almost at an hour. Should we move on to the next topic?
I'd like to get off of
I think
Trump.
we should. I'm just saying.